Effective immediately, the US Navy, the finest in the world, will begin the process of blockading any and all ships trying to enter or leave the Strait of Hormuz. Any Iranian who fires at us or at peaceful vessels will be blown to hell. They are the breaking words coming out of Donald Trump right now. And effective immediately within the next 24 hours, the world's choke point gets more closed off. Trump's strategy to open up the Strait of Hormuz has turned into blocking the Strait of Hormuz. And in today's video, I want to give you the latest alpha about exactly what's happening, why this thing has not went well. What are the oil prices doing as well? Because they are magically teleporting to new highs that we are seeing, and how all this intel that we are seeing right now is actually pushing us towards the road of World War III. I'll explain that in today's video at the end, because China and Russia are starting to get impacted by this, and potentially we might be walking into World War III. So if you guys enjoy the update, just like the video. It means you're listening, and it means you're here and you appreciate the updates. And I hope everyone had a great weekend. And let's get straight into this news. So the biggest news is the diplomacy, the talks in Pakistan have failed. As a result of those failed talks, and we'll get to the Iranian point of view towards the end, but Trump has enacted a blockade. This is a big tweet. Look, if you want to pause the video and just read it all out yourself, do it. But I will just say the important things from this tweet, because again, Trump is just sending off so many really big and long tweets, and quite often you just got to get to the key points. And the key points for this is, look, effective immediately, the US Navy, the finest in the world, will begin the process of blocking any and all ships trying to enter or leave the Strait of Hormuz, and they're going to attack any Iranian vessels or interference in this. That is what Trump is saying. That's effectively kicking off today, okay? So Monday, 13th of April, which is today, 10 a.m. Eastern time, US time. So New York time right there. This blockade becomes effective, right? And remember, in the background, if you've been a subscriber of this channel, you already know how bad the situation with the oil is. You already know how bad, the lack of oil flowing out of the Middle East. And not only the lack of oil, urea, all these fertilizer products, and a lot of other things, helium. This is just going to make the situation 10 times worse. So this is going to be kicking off today, 10 a.m. And once again, we are looking back to a hot conflict. So I think, again, my own independent analysis, I think the missiles and drones will start flying once again very soon. So this blockade is effective. That is what Trump is trying to do. And he's also putting out, people are talking right here, according to the Wall Street Journal, Trump is looking at, they say limited strikes, but of course, you guys know what that means. It just means war again. So war is going to kick off very likely soon. This could surge the oil price even higher. So we'll take a look at the S&P 500 futures and oil at the end of the video. But this is what you have to prepare for, because again, the conflict is getting dragged on. And remember, this whole conflict, it's a ticking time bomb. So the longer this drags on, the worse it becomes. So it's like the Vietnam War, except, the Vietnam War, even though that was extremely unpopular, it wasn't centered around the global supply chain. It wasn't centered around the global oil pipelines. This is the worst case scenario for the global economy we're looking at. We're staring down the barrel of some extremely bad things. And having said that, there is a bit of a plan. We'll talk about what China is doing, because China is not really sitting on the sidelines, and we'll get to that at the end of the video. But have a look. This is what the plan might be. So I think there will be continuous pressure on NATO by Trump. I think there's going to be continuous pressure on the European countries to come into this conflict, right? So Trump is saying the UK is coming in to assist. He's saying France might be coming in. Remember, in Europe as well at the same time, they're going to have gas and oil shortages if it's not already bad enough as it is. It's most likely it will get worse and worse as time goes on. So there might be more economic pressure for these countries to join in, even though at the moment they are saying from their side of view that they've rejected Trump's calls. But we'll see how this happens and whether this is going to flip. And let's listen into Trump, what he's saying directly from his own mouth. Let's listen in.
I predict they come back and they give us everything we want. And I told my people, I want everything. I don't want 90%. I don't want 95%. I told them, I want everything.
Well, and what they
have
want...
no cards, Maria.
Yep.
They have no cards. Their Navy is gone. Their Air Force is gone, totally gone. They have nothing. They have no ships. 158 ships are at the bottom of the sea. Good ones, new. The Soleimani, they had one called the Soleimani, was taken out by one of our tiger sharks, by one of our rapidly moving submarines. It's amazing. Our military is so good.
So that is Trump's prediction. He's saying Iran's going to come back and give the US everything they want, and I just don't think that's going to be the case at all. So I think Trump's prediction, even though he's saying, look, he's taken out a lot of ships, and that's true, the truth of the matter is Iran has went all in on missiles. It's went all in on drones, and these things are hidden in they're hidden in mountains. They're hidden all over Iran. And they might be, with the help of China, even further embedding their anti-aircraft soon that we'll talk about. But this is not as easy as what Trump is saying anymore, because I think the World War II of just parking aircraft carriers outside countries and wanting them to submit, it's not as effective anymore, because there's missiles and drones that can counter those things. Now that is Trump's predictions. I don't think they're going to come true. I think you're going to see more and more, to be honest, bloody conflict coming out of this. And Trump is also alluding to the next steps. And he says right here, their water, their desalination plants, their electricity generating plants, which are very easy to hit. We could have them all down. And I mean down like you couldn't have electricity for 10 years down. That is what Trump is kind of implying, the threats right there. Now, what are the Iranians saying to all this? So the negotiations have went south. What are the Iranians saying? So we have right here this Iranian KOL, but he's also very high up in Iran's government, Speaker of the Parliament, MB Ghalibaf. He says, enjoy the current pump figures. With the so-called blockade, soon you'll be nostalgic for $4 to $5 gas. And yes, it can potentially, it's going to get worse, right? So the longer this thing goes on for, the higher the gas prices are going to go. And at the moment, we are seeing a huge flurry of people buying up electric vehicles. So hybrid vehicles, plug-in hybrid vehicles, fully electric vehicles. People are going for solar and they're going for electric vehicles, because at the moment, these gas prices, it could go to $7. It could potentially even go to $10. Right, that's how bad the situation is getting. And Sayed Aragachi right here says, in intensive talks at the highest levels in 47 years, Iran engaged with US in good faith to end the war, but when just inches away from Islamabad MOU, we encountered maximalism, shifting goalposts, and blockade. Zero lessons earned, good will beget goodwill, an enemy begets an enemy. So that is the words coming out of the Iranian foreign minister. And I think the time for talk is effectively over. I think the time for a hot war is pretty much here. And I won't be surprised if within the next couple of days, as a bit of a prediction, this thing breaks out again. So we see a full-on, blown escalation war. And I think that's going to be very, very bad for the stock market. We'll talk about that. The oil prices we'll talk about soon. But before we talk about that, let's talk about World War III, because this actually has some implied actions that actually are walking, like this is the cliff edge of World War III. And let me explain. So have a look at this tweet from Brian. He says, Trump threatens blockade on Iran and on China. As I warned repeatedly, the US not only doesn't care about the Strait of Hormuz closing, it just wants it closed on its own terms. So with this blockade that is effectively getting hit, this is going to potentially impact China, because according to War Radar right here, nearly 60 to 80% of Iran's oil exports go to China. Any disruption in the strait could directly impact China's energy supply and send shockwaves across the global markets. And not only China, India as well. A single choke point, massive global consequences. And so what Trump is doing, if you think about the deeper meaning behind this, is he's effectively blockading all. So if Iran and China have a deal, Trump is saying, no deal anymore. We're going to blockade that. You cannot pass US ships. So if we actually just bring out the map, and we fly over to the Middle East right here. So what he's saying is any ships that come out of Iran, and even if they've got a deal with Japan, even if they got a direct deal with China and India, Trump is basically saying, no deal. You're not allowed to do that. So he is interfering in supply agreements between Iran and China, right? He's saying you're not allowed to do that. He's just saying he's going to park warships and destroyers out here, and he's going to intercept any vessel that is departing from an Iranian port. Right? And this is the prelude, because China might say, well, look, you're interfering in our national security. We need that oil. We need it for our industry, and you're blocking the oil. And this is like, this is reminiscent of what happened with Japan in World War II. So remember, Japan before, it started to go like for a full blitzkrieg across China and the South Asian countries right here. Its oil was interfered with. Its oil supplies were getting choked off. And so Trump is potentially, looking at provoking World War III actually happening. And this is bad because, China is potentially going to step up its aid towards Iran, and maybe Russia will as well. And at the moment, you can see these things are highly effective. So China might just mass produce these and might flood them into Iran. And what are these? So according to CNN, China is preparing to send air defense systems to Iran in the coming weeks. Per the report, China is preparing to send man-portable air defense systems, manpads, through a third party to mask the origin of the weapons. And this might be a highly effective strategy against the US. So remember, we saw just recently a US pilot getting shot down, and they had to send all these helicopters in. And we'll just bring up the footage of this. And they had to fly super low altitude over Iran right here. And this is like prime targeting for manpads. So you could just give like, average farmers, agricultural workers in Iran these manpads, and these planes would eventually be toast. The helicopters would be toast. So that is a strategy Iran could do, just flood the whole country with manpads, and lots of people covering lots of areas, and they see one of these planes or helicopters, whatever it may be, maybe they can effectively target these a lot more effectively. So this is the prelude to World War III we're seeing, and this is all kicking off today. I mean, what a day. What a way to open up the week. World War III, footsteps, cliff edge right here. And let's take a, and this is actually reminiscent of a prediction for from Alex Karp. So the US will very likely fight a three-front war against Russia, China, and Iran. And that was actually a prediction coming out in 2024, right? So we're actually going to see that. We might potentially see that the way this is happening. You might see a three-front war, Russia, China, and Iran. And I just don't know, Iran, the big question mark isn't so much Iran. So Iran has been very surprising. I think the big question mark is China, because China basically manufactures drones, it manufactures missiles, and it's full of really smart people. And there's like 1 billion of them. And I think this is going to get very, very interesting. So the big question that's up for grabs right now is does the US even maintain its supremacy from World War II? Or is this like the final kind of twilight years of the US empire that we're witnessing before it potentially crumbles, right? Before this thing just falls over, and you're going to see a new world order take place, and it might not be the US at the top anymore. So ever since World War II, it's been trying to dominate the world, and right now it might be at the twilight. The sun might be setting, but just depends on China, really. China, how involved it gets in this conflict, but let's see how this all plays out. And you can see right here, the oil market is not liking the news of this, so it's doing like a Harry Potter, using the Flume, is it the Flu network to teleport? So it's teleported from $95 up to $105 right here, going to the moon. And the S&P 500 futures looking, it dropped actually quite a lot before. It's inching back up. You're looking about negative 1% today. And, as this war drags on, we'll just see how bad this gets. Because, look, the worse this conflict goes for, the more destruction, infrastructure, I think that's going to tank the whole market. So I think there's going to be volatility coming in for, gold, silver, oil will be going up, stock market will be going down. I think commodities will still eventually do very well. You can see silver having a bit of a sell-off, but then, it's rebounding in the last few hours right here. So from about 76 down to 72, and the same story across many stocks as well. And we're just going to have to brace for the storm. So guys, we're on the edge of the storm, and let's just see how it plays out, day by day, and hour by hour, even potentially. It's just how crazy things are getting. But that's today's big update. If you guys enjoyed it, like the video. Appreciate you all tuning in, and subscribe if you want the next update. Appreciate you guys watching. See you in the next one.